The short story you are about to hear will strikingly reveal why you haven't reached your dreams. Perhaps the very thing holding you back is the one thing you don't have the courage to let go of. So let this video guide you. Your answer might be closer than you think. Are you ready? In a distant, quiet land, a Stoic sage and his young student were searching for a place to rest after days of travel. As they walked under the scorching sun, they spotted a modest house on top of a hill and approached it with hope. At the door, they were greeted by an old man dressed in worn-out clothes. The man invited them inside. As they sat at the table, they met his wife and 3 children. Their faces were weary, and their eyes carried the weight of a life filled with hardship. During dinner, the student felt a deep sadness as he looked at the little food the family had. Realizing their struggles, he asked the old man how they survived. The old man smiled with pride and said, "That cow you see outside is all we have. We survive on its milk and trade what's left for other necessities. We are grateful for the cow. Without it, I don't know what we would do." Hearing this, the student's heart ached. He glanced at his teacher, expecting a reaction, but the Stoic sage simply bowed his head and continued eating in silence. That night, the student couldn't sleep. He whispered to his master, "Master, is there anything we can do to help this family escape their deep poverty?" The wise man looked at him and calmly said, "If you truly want to help, take their cow while they sleep and lead it far away." The student was shocked. "But master, isn't that stealing? The cow is their only source of income. If we do this, they'll be even worse off." The sage, unwavering in his resolve, insisted, "If you really wish to help, trust me and do as I say." With a heavy heart and tears in his eyes, the student obeyed. He secretly took the cow and gave it away to another family in need. Years passed, but the weight of that decision never left the student. Racked with guilt, he decided to visit the family and apologize. He took all his savings with him, hoping to make amends. As he reached the hill, he was stunned to see a magnificent house where the humble cottage once stood. In disbelief, he approached the door and asked a servant about the family who used to live there. "Yes, they still live here," the servant replied, pointing towards the garden. The old man immediately recognized the student and welcomed him warmly. The student looked around in amazement, taking in the lush gardens, the happy children playing, and the table filled with an abundance of food. The air was filled with peace and prosperity. Overwhelmed with curiosity, the student finally asked, "How did all of this happen?" "I remember how poor you were. Your only source of survival was that one cow. But now your life is completely transformed." The old man squinted his eyes slightly, thinking for a moment before answering with a heartfelt smile. "The morning after you left, we woke up to find our cow missing. At first, we panicked. It was our only support, our only hope. We searched for it for days, waiting anxiously for its return. But in time, we realized that instead of waiting, we had to find other ways to survive." That was the moment when real change began. The student felt a deep sense of astonishment at what he had just heard. The guilt he had carried for so long was now being replaced by admiration and respect. The old man gazed toward the horizon, took a deep breath, and continued speaking. "I will never forget that day. Losing our cow felt like the end of the world. At that moment, we thought we had lost everything, but now I understand that it was actually the day we began to gain everything." The old man paused for a moment, his eyes traveling back through the years. It was as if he had pulled a memory from the depths of his past. "When I was young, my father taught me something, that I could create wonders from wood with my own hands. Back in those days, I used to carve small sculptures, shaping wood with care. But the hardships of life made me forget my talent. I was caught up in the struggle to survive. We had a cow. Why would I need to learn anything else? At least that's what I thought. But when the cow was gone, I had no other choice. I would either disappear into nothingness or bring forth the part of me I had long forgotten." He locked eyes with the student, and his voice deepened, filled with conviction. "That day, I picked up an axe and sat before a block of wood. My hands trembled. I didn't believe I could do it. But I had no other option. I made the first strike, then another, and another. I worked for days. I couldn't sleep at night. The first carving I made was a bird, a small, simple figure. I took it to the market thinking maybe I could sell it for a few coins. But what happened next was beyond anything I had imagined." The student leaned in, his curiosity growing. The old man continued. That day, a man came and looked at my work. His eyes lit up. Did you make this? He asked. I hesitated but nodded. He pressed a few copper coins into my hand and said, Can you make more for me? In that moment, I understood. My entire life, the only thing I had held on to was the milk of a cow. But inside me, there was a treasure waiting to be discovered. I had simply been too afraid to uncover it. But now, I was no longer afraid. The old man took a deep breath, placed his hands on the table, and looked into the student's eyes as he continued. From that day on, I kept working with wood. I moved from small carvings to larger sculptures. My wife learned the art of craftsmanship as well. My children sold our work at the market. Over time, our business grew. We not only put food on our table, but built an entirely new life for ourselves. And all of this was possible because we lost our cow that day. For a moment, sadness flickered in his eyes, but it was quickly replaced with deep wisdom. Now I understand. Sometimes the greatest gain is hidden behind the greatest loss. What we believe protects us the most can actually be the very thing that chains us down. If our cow hadn't disappeared, I would never have discovered my true talent, and I would not be sitting here, in this home, in this peace. The student nodded, feeling the weight of those words sink into his soul. In that moment, he realized that change is never easy or comfortable. But true growth begins when one steps out of their comfort zone and into the unknown. The old man smiled, placed a friendly hand on the student's shoulder, and whispered, Sometimes life takes away what we fear losing the most, but in return it gives us something greater, our true potential. So ask yourself, what is the thing you fear losing the most? And if you truly lost it, who could you become?